The billionaire leaned back in his leather chair, smiling with the confidence of a man who had never heard the word impossible. In front of dozens of employees gathered in the bright afternoon sunlight pouring through the glass walls of the office, he made a challenge that everyone thought was nothing more than a cruel joke. He looked at the exhausted single father standing near the conference table and dared him to quit his job, certain that a man struggling to raise a child alone could never afford to walk away. But what happened next left the room frozen in silence. Instead of arguing, pleading, or lowering his head, the father quietly stood up, opened a cardboard box, and began packing his belongings. Before we continue this emotional journey, take a moment to like, comment, share, and subscribe to Heart Kindness Tales if you believe in kindness, second chances, and the power of human dignity. Tell us in the comments where you are watching from, because stories like this remind us that hope can appear when life seems darkest. Adrian Mercer was 38 years old, though the stress of life had carved years into his face that did not belong there. His mornings began before sunrise and ended long after darkness covered the city. He was a devoted father to his 8-year-old daughter, Nora, whose laughter was the only music that still softened the harsh realities of his life. Since losing his wife 4 years earlier to a sudden illness, Adrian had carried the weight of 2 parents on his shoulders. Every school lunch packed, every homework assignment checked, every nightmare comforted in the middle of the night had become his responsibility. He worked as an operations supervisor at a luxury development company owned by Everett Kingsley, one of the wealthiest businessmen in the country. Everett was famous for his sharp mind, his billion-dollar empire, and his belief that people were motivated only by fear and money. To him, employees were numbers, productivity charts, and disposable assets. Compassion was a weakness he believed successful people could not afford. Adrian was different. He believed hard work mattered. He believed loyalty mattered. Most importantly, he believed promises mattered. Years earlier, when his wife was fighting for her life, he had promised her that Nora would always feel loved, protected, and valued, no matter how difficult life became. But promises become heavy when bills pile up. Rent had increased again. Nora needed new shoes because her feet had grown faster than Adrian's paycheck allowed. Medical debt still followed him like a shadow. The old car he depended on coughed and rattled every morning as if reminding him it was just as exhausted as he was. Despite everything, Adrian rarely complained. He arrived early every day, stayed late whenever asked, and covered shifts for coworkers who needed help. Many employees admired him because he never let his struggles become excuses. They often wondered how he managed to keep smiling. Then came the day everything changed. It was a warm afternoon in late spring. Sunlight filled the conference room where executives and supervisors had gathered for a quarterly meeting. Everett Kingsley was celebrating record profits. Investors were happy. Shareholders were celebrating. Champagne bottles waited nearby. Yet Adrian sat quietly, distracted by a text message from Nora's teacher reminding him about the school art exhibition that evening. He had promised Nora he would be there. But another email arrived moments later requesting supervisors remain for an extended strategy session expected to continue late into the night. Adrian politely explained that he needed to leave on time because of his daughter. Everett noticed. The billionaire paused, amused by what he saw as misplaced priorities. He questioned Adrian in front of everyone about commitment, sacrifice, and ambition. Adrian respectfully explained that his daughter had already experienced enough disappointment after losing her mother and that he refused to break another promise to her. Several employees lowered their eyes. Others shifted uncomfortably. Everett laughed. To him, family obligations were excuses used by people unwilling to climb higher. Then he issued the challenge. He said that if Adrian believed family mattered more than career advancement, he should simply quit. He mocked the idea that a single father living paycheck to paycheck would ever walk away from stable employment. He was certain fear would keep Adrian in place. Fear usually worked. Fear had built empires. Fear kept employees obedient. But Everett underestimated something powerful. He underestimated a father's love. Adrian sat silently for several seconds. The room waited. People expected him to apologize. Instead, he stood. He walked toward his desk outside the conference room. He grabbed a cardboard storage box from a supply cabinet. Then he began placing framed photographs inside. One picture showed Nora missing her front tooth, smiling with complete joy. Another showed his late wife holding their newborn daughter. A handmade drawing covered in glitter rested near his computer monitor with uneven handwriting that read, "My daddy is my hero." Suddenly, the room became painfully quiet. People realized this was not a dramatic gesture. He was truly leaving. Everett's smile faded. He had expected hesitation. He had expected excuses. He had expected defeat. But Adrian continued packing. Years of dedication fit into a single box. A coffee mug. A notebook. Family photos. Pens. Small memories collected during difficult years. He looked toward Everett and thanked him for the opportunity to work there. Then he explained that while jobs could be replaced, moments with children could not. Nora would only be 8 years old once. She would only have one father. No paycheck was worth teaching his daughter that promises meant nothing. Adrian walked out of the building carrying his box under the bright afternoon sky. Employees watched through the windows. Some admired his courage. Others feared for his future. Everett simply stood motionless. For the first time in years, someone had chosen dignity over dependency. Adrian reached Nora's school just minutes before the exhibition began. Children proudly displayed paintings, drawings, and handmade crafts. Nora scanned the crowd anxiously. When she spotted her father entering the room, her eyes filled with relief. She ran toward him. Her small arms wrapped around his waist. She whispered that she knew he would come because he never broke promises. Adrian smiled while fighting back tears. At that moment, unemployment no longer felt frightening. It felt freeing. But reality arrived quickly. Days became weeks. Savings disappeared faster than expected. Adrian sold old furniture. He canceled subscriptions. He skipped meals so Nora would never notice financial struggles. He smiled through uncertainty because children can sense fear even when adults hide it. At night, after Nora slept, Adrian searched endlessly for work. Applications were sent. Interviews were attended. Rejections arrived. Companies wanted candidates with fewer limitations. Some disliked hearing that he was a single parent. Others questioned whether he could balance responsibilities. Discouragement slowly crept in. Yet every morning Nora greeted him with optimism. She drew pictures of brighter days. She left encouraging notes on the kitchen table. One note read, "Daddy, superheroes don't give up." Adrian kept it inside his wallet. One afternoon while volunteering at Nora's community center, Adrian noticed several families struggling with affordable childcare. Parents rushed between jobs, exhausted and worried. An idea emerged. Perhaps his experiences could help others. He understood challenges single parents faced. He understood loneliness. He understood impossible schedules. With borrowed equipment and support from community members, Adrian began organizing a small after-school program offering tutoring, meals, and supervised activities. At first, only 5 children attended. Then 10. Then 20. Parents appreciated having a safe place for their children. Teachers recommended the program. Volunteers joined. Local businesses donated supplies. The center slowly transformed into something meaningful. It became more than childcare. It became a family. Months later, a local journalist published an article highlighting Adrian's efforts. The story spread online. People admired the father who had sacrificed stability to honor a promise. Donations arrived. Community leaders offered assistance. A non-profit organization provided funding. Soon, Adrian rented a larger space. Walls were painted bright colors. Bookshelves filled with stories. Children laughed loudly. Parents cried with gratitude. What started as uncertainty became purpose. Meanwhile, Everett Kingsley could not forget that afternoon. Images of Adrian packing his belongings replayed in his mind. For years, Everett had measured success through profits. Yet despite billions in assets, he often returned home to empty rooms. His marriage had ended years earlier. His adult son rarely answered calls. Birthdays had been missed. Holidays had become business meetings. Achievements filled newspapers but not his heart. One evening he searched online and discovered Adrian's growing community center. Photographs showed smiling families. Children holding books. Volunteers serving meals. Parents embracing one another. Something unexpected stirred inside him. Regret. For the first time, Everett questioned whether he had spent his entire life chasing wealth while losing everything truly valuable. Weeks later, he visited the center quietly. Children played outside beneath the warm afternoon sun. Parents chatted nearby. Adrian was helping a child with homework. He looked happier than Everett had ever seen him. Not richer. Not more powerful. Simply happier. Everett realized that the man he once considered weak had discovered something money alone could never buy. Meaning. Adrian welcomed him respectfully. There was no bitterness. No anger. Only kindness. Everett apologized sincerely for humiliating him months earlier. He admitted that he had been wrong. He confessed that watching Adrian choose family over fear had forced him to examine his own life. Adrian listened patiently. Then he explained that people make mistakes, but growth begins when someone is willing to learn from them. Everett asked how he could help. Adrian smiled. He suggested supporting families who needed opportunities. Scholarships. Meals. Educational programs. Resources for struggling parents. Everett agreed. His contribution transformed the center further. New classrooms opened. Counseling services became available. Hundreds of families benefited. But Adrian never forgot where it all began. It began with a challenge meant to humiliate him. It began with someone assuming desperation would destroy courage. Instead, courage created a new future. Years later, Nora stood on a stage receiving an academic achievement award. She looked toward the audience. Her father sat proudly in the front row. Beside him sat Everett Kingsley, now one of the center's most dedicated supporters. Nora smiled and thanked her father for teaching her that love is stronger than fear and that keeping promises matters more than impressing the world. Adrian's eyes filled with tears. Because in that moment, he understood something beautiful. Walking away from security had not been losing everything. It had been finding everything he truly needed. Success was never about the size of a paycheck. Success was being present. Success was hearing your child laugh. Success was becoming the person your loved ones believe you already are. And sometimes, the greatest opportunities arrive disguised as impossible choices. If this story touched your heart, please take a moment to like, share, and subscribe to Heart Kindness Tales so more people can experience stories that remind us what truly matters in life. Special request: comment below with the words, "Promises matter," if you believe family, love, and kindness are worth more than wealth. As the sun set behind the community center that evening, children continued playing, parents continued smiling, and Adrian watched the sky with gratitude. He had once feared that quitting his job would destroy his future. Instead, it had led him toward a life filled with purpose, connection, and hope. The billionaire had dared a single father to walk away, believing he never would. But by choosing love over fear, Adrian discovered that the bravest decisions often open doors we never imagined existed, proving that even in our darkest moments, kindness, courage, and faith can create miracles beyond measure.